The rain had already been falling for 2 hours when Detective Mira Solis stepped out of the unmarked car. River Street glistened beneath the street lamps, a long, wet ribbon reflecting oranges and blues from flickering neon signs. The kind of night where the city held its breath. The kind of night where something terrible always happened. She ducked under the yellow tape. The alleyway behind the shuttered bakery was silent except for the steady drip of rainwater from a sagging gutter. Officers moved carefully, speaking in hushed tones, as if afraid their voices might disturb something lurking in the shadows. The victim lay face down against the cold bricks, a young man no older than 25. His jacket soaked, one hand stretched out as if he had tried to crawl toward the street. No ID, no wallet, no obvious struggle. Just one thing. A single silver coin placed gently beneath his fingertips. Mira exhaled slowly. Not again. The last case involving a silver coin had gone cold 6 months ago. Unsolved, haunting her desk every morning like a taunt. A victim with no connections. No motive. No suspect. Just that same impossible coin. But tonight felt different. Tonight the rain felt heavier, like the sky knew something the city didn't. She crouched beside the body. "He wasn't killed here," she murmured. Officer Vance nodded. No blood pool. No drag marks. Body was placed. "And the coin?" she asked, glancing up. Vance swallowed. "Exactly like the last one." "Exactly. Deliberate. Meaningful." Myra's phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She answered. No greeting. No breathing. Just a single whisper. "You're late." The line went dead. Mira froze, the breath catching in her chest as the city hummed quietly around her. The officers kept working. No one noticed her pale expression, or the way her hand trembled slightly as she lowered the phone. Because only one person could have said that to her. Only one person even knew she'd reopened the coin case in secret. But that person had been dead for 3 years. Mira stood. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Something cold slithered through her spine, a feeling she hadn't felt since the night she quit working undercover. Something wasn't adding up. Someone was watching. She stepped back under the alleyway light, studying the angles, the rooftops, the windows above. The rain blurred everything into a soft glow. If someone was there, they were already gone. Vance approached. "Detective. Everything okay?" Mira nodded once, even though nothing was okay anymore. "Bag the coin," she said. "And call CSU. We're not leaving anything behind." As she turned back toward the street, she caught a faint reflection in the bakery's darkened window. Her own silhouette. And behind her, just for a split second, she thought she saw another. Watching. Waiting. Then it vanished. Mira stepped out into the rain, letting it wash over her face as she walked back toward the car. The city lights shimmered through the storm, and a distant siren wailed like a warning. Tonight wasn't just another crime. It was the beginning of something she thought she'd left behind. Something darker. Something patient. And as she opened the car door, she whispered to herself, "What do you want from me this time?" But the rain didn't answer. Only the city did, with a trembling hum that felt like the opening note of a nightmare just waking up. The rain finally eased near midnight, leaving the city coated in a silver, sleepless sheen. Detective Mira Solis sat alone in her apartment, lights off, the faint glow from the skyline spilling across her floor like broken moonlight. She hadn't changed clothes. She hadn't taken her boots off. She just sat and listened. Her phone lay on the coffee table, screen dark, as if waiting. That voice, the whisper from the alley, circled her thoughts like a predator looping its territory. "You're late." Mira hadn't heard that voice since the night Detective Calderon died. Her mentor. Her partner. The man who took a bullet meant for her, or so they said. But the official story had never sat right with her. Too clean. Too fast. Too convenient. And the silver coins. They were his signature. His obsession. A trail he believed led to a syndicate no one else believed existed. Until he ended up in a closed casket. Myra's fingers tightened around her knees. Dead men don't whisper. But someone wanted her to think they could. Her phone buzzed. She jolted upright, pulse hammering. Unknown number. She hesitated only a moment before answering. Detective, a voice murmured. Smooth, controlled, genderless. You're looking in the wrong alleyway. Mira stood quickly, pacing toward the window. Who is this? You missed the message. What message? Then, check your door. The call ended. Myra's breath caught. She approached her door, steps slow and deliberate, hand hovering over her holstered gun. For a moment, the hallway beyond the peephole looked silent, empty. Then she saw it. A small black envelope slid under her door. She stared at it, pulse loud in her ears. Picking it up felt like lifting a snake. Inside was a photograph. Grainy, taken at night. A man standing on a rooftop, face hidden in shadow. But in his right hand, glinting under the moon, a silver coin. And at the bottom of the photo, written in red ink, second victim. 3:14 a.m. Her blood chilled. Second victim. Already. She reached for her jacket just as her phone buzzed again, this time an alert from dispatch. Homicide reported, South Docks. Time, 3:14 a.m. Detective Solis requested. Mira whispered. No. Someone had planned this. Someone had known she would find the envelope at this exact moment. Someone was orchestrating the night like a conductor of violence. She raced down the stairs, the city's cold air slapping her awake as she ran for her car. The streets were nearly empty, just the river's dark water churning beside the docks. She reached the crime scene in minutes. And there, illuminated by the rotating blue and red lights, lay a woman in a long coat. Peaceful, almost asleep, except for the thin line of blood at her temple. No struggle, no identification. And placed gently on her chest. Coin. Silver. Untarnished. The same impossible emblem that haunted her caseboard. Sergeant Vance approached her, frowning. You beat us here. Dispatch said they pinged you first. Mira swallowed hard. Somebody told me. Vance looked confused. What? Who? But Mira barely heard him. Something else caught her eye. A mark on the victim's coat sleeve. A fingerprint. A smudge. She crouched squinting. Not a print. Symbol. A circle with a diagonal slash. Faint, but deliberate. She'd seen that symbol only once before. On the inside of Calderon's old notebook. The one taken from evidence the night he died. Someone wanted her to follow this trail. Someone who knew every hidden page of her past. Mira stood slowly, scanning the shadows between the shipping containers. The docks were silent. Black water slapped the pier with restless hands. A cold wind crawled along her spine. She knew she was being watched. And somewhere in the darkness, the whispering caller waited. Tonight wasn't about murder. It was a message. One meant only for her. And as she stared at the silver coin glinting on the woman's chest, Mira felt the truth settle over her like a weight. This wasn't the beginning. This was a continuation. Of a story that should have died 3 years ago, but somehow, terrifyingly, hadn't. The city had grown quiet again, though the wet streets still reflected the scattered neon like fractured glass. Detective Mira Solis drove slowly through the empty avenues, lights off, allowing her eyes to adjust to the soft, glimmering darkness. The rain had left the air damp and heavy, clinging to her skin and coat. Every puddle mirrored shadows that moved independently, as if the city itself was alive and watching. Her mind raced with the events of the night. 2 victims. 2 silver coins. 1 photograph slipped under her door. And the unmistakable symbol, a circle with a diagonal slash, etched into the memory of her last case. Each detail pressed on her like the soft weight of water in her lungs, gentle but suffocating. The docks had been silent when she arrived, save for the low lapping of the river against the pilings. No sign of the perpetrator, no footprints aside from the officer's prints, no immediate evidence. Yet the coins, each placed deliberately, told a story. A story written in precision, designed to taunt her. Her radio crackled faintly, but she ignored it, letting her own thoughts flow like the dark waters beside her. She replayed every detail in slow motion, like the ticking of a metronome guiding a symphony of memories. She remembered Calderon's warnings, his obsession with patterns and codes, his insistence that nothing in the city happened without reason. And now, 3 years later, the city whispered the same warning in cryptic silver glimmers. Mira pulled over near the bridge overlooking the river. Steam rose from the grates, curling into soft ribbons that disappeared into the night. She exhaled slowly, watching the river carry reflections of the city lights in a gentle dance. In that silence, she let herself think about the victims, the young man in the alley, the woman on the docks, and tried to imagine their final moments. Both had been calm, almost serene in death, as if they had been posed like dolls in a quiet tableau. The coins were not just tokens, they were signatures, messages, clues. A shadow moved at the edge of her vision. Myra's hand instinctively reached for her gun, fingers brushing the cool metal beneath her coat. She turned sharply, scanning the deserted street. Nothing. Only the faint ripples in the puddles. Only the city breathing around her. Yet the feeling persisted, subtle and insistent, that she was being followed. The radio crackled again, a brief pulse, a single name whispered before the line went dead. Detective, follow shadows. Her heart skipped, and she knew she wasn't imagining it. Someone was guiding her. Or perhaps testing her. Someone who understood the rhythm of her steps, the cadence of her thoughts, and who could manipulate the night like a painter moving invisible brushstrokes across the canvas of the city. She climbed back into her car, the warmth of the engine a small comfort against the cold pressing in. Every turn she made, every street she passed, seemed familiar yet strange, as if the city itself had shifted while she wasn't looking. And in the corners of her mind, the image of the rooftop figure from the photograph hovered, silent and watchful, holding its coin like a beacon in the darkness. Mira tried to push it away, to concentrate on the tangible. Fingerprints, camera footage, witness statements, but the impossible pattern tugged at her attention, like a thread woven into the fabric of her consciousness. By the time she reached the precinct, the storm had returned in scattered drops, soft taps against the windshield. Officers moved with mechanical precision, unaware of the invisible threads connecting the night's events. Mira stepped inside, the fluorescent lights stark and unyielding, and made her way to the evidence room. She placed the coin from the docks carefully on the counter, observing it as if it might speak. The metallic surface glimmered, smooth and cold. She remembered Calderon's meticulous notes, his theories about the network behind the coins, the impossible precision of the markings. Someone was orchestrating a message across years, weaving their presence into the spaces she occupied. And the coins, small and unassuming, carried weight heavier than any weapon. They were silent witnesses, waiting for her to understand. Mira leaned back in her chair, letting the quiet settle like a fog. The precinct buzzed faintly in the background, the low hum of computers, the shuffle of paperwork, the occasional ringing phone. She closed her eyes briefly, imagining the two victims as they had been moments before death, unaware, serene, caught in the unseen web of a careful predator. She thought about the first coin she ever encountered, how it had seemed like a mere curiosity, and how quickly it had grown into a pattern she could not ignore. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Officer Vance, holding a tablet. "Detective, you need to see this." The security camera near the alleyway. It picked up something. Sort of. Mira gestured for him to continue. Vance swiped the screen and a faint, grainy image appeared. A figure slipping past the camera's range, the coin clutched in one hand. The face was obscured, but the movement was deliberate, almost theatrical. The figure paused for just a moment, looked directly at the camera, and then vanished into the night. The motion was slow, intentional, calculated. Mira felt a shiver trace her spine. The message was clear. The perpetrator was not only aware of the cameras but playing with them, guiding her attention, leaving clues only she could decipher. Hours passed as she and Vance studied the footage, cross-referencing locations, times and patterns. Mira noticed subtle consistencies. The alignment of streetlights, the rhythm of the victim's placement, the precise intervals between each coin drop. It was a silent choreography, a puzzle composed not just of objects, but of space and time. And in every move, every placement, every shadow, she felt Calderon's presence guiding her intuition. His voice a ghost whispering in the quiet corners of her mind. As the night stretched toward dawn, Mira stepped outside for air, letting the chill brush her face. The city exhaled in soft hisses from vents and drains, and the first glimmer of light touched the horizon. She realized she had been chasing shadows, yes, but these shadows were alive with intention. They were pointing, always pointing, to a truth she had yet to uncover. The silver coins were not mere markers. They were threads in a tapestry, each one a step closer to understanding the unseen hand guiding this grim narrative. Mira returned to her desk and spread out all the photographs, maps, and notes she had compiled. She traced lines with her finger, imagining the movement across streets, buildings, rooftops. Patterns emerged, subtle but undeniable. Someone was orchestrating events with the precision of a composer, and the melody was hauntingly familiar. Each coin, each placement, each shadowy movement of the night whispered a message, a sequence only she could follow. And somewhere in the distance, she knew the next scene was waiting, the next victim, the next coin, the next impossible clue. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the city, Mira felt the weight of anticipation settle gently on her shoulders. The night had spoken, and she had listened. But the story was far from complete. A new chapter awaited, written in shadows and whispered in rain. The coin, the photograph, the symbol, each held the promise of revelation. Night fell again over the city, heavy and quiet, blanketing streets and alleys with the soft hush of anticipation. Detective Mira Solis leaned over the evidence board, tracing the lines of the coin placements with her finger, watching the pattern emerge across maps and photographs. Each location felt deliberate, calculated, a choreography only the unseen figure could have composed. And she knew, deep down, that the next step would demand leaving the streets she knew, climbing higher, seeing the city from a perspective most overlooked. She pulled on her coat, its fabric soaked from the day's intermittent drizzle, and made her way toward the building marked on her notes, a tall, abandoned warehouse at the edge of the old district. The structure loomed like a silent sentinel, windows blacked out, edges softened by mist curling from nearby vents. Myra's boots echoed softly against the wet pavement as she approached the side entrance. Inside, the air was cool and stagnant, smelling faintly of rust and damp concrete. Shadows moved in the corners, cast by the dim light of her flashlight as she ascended the creaking stairwell. Step by step, she felt the city fall away beneath her, the distant hum of traffic fading into a gentle murmur. She climbed higher, moving toward the roof, each footfall measured, deliberate. The wind tugged at her hair, whispering through the broken edges of the building, carrying with it the faint metallic scent of rain on steel. She imagined the rooftop figure, standing there, observing her, testing her patience, orchestrating the night like a conductor guiding invisible notes through the air. Finally, she reached the top floor and pushed the hatch open. The city sprawled before her, vast and glimmering, veins of light stretching endlessly. And there, silhouetted against the dim glow of distant neon, was the figure she had seen in the photograph. Standing motionless, coins held lightly in one hand, they seemed suspended between reality and shadow, a frozen note in the rhythm of the night. Mira froze. Her hand hovered over her holster, pulse thudding. The figure did not move, did not speak, yet communicated in a language of presence. Each gesture, each pause, each tilt of the head was deliberate. The city felt larger from here, stretched and pliable, each rooftop and alleyway a stage for the next movement of this careful dance. She took a step forward. The figure mirrored nothing, yet seemed aware of her every action. Her heart beat in the quiet space between them, in sync with the soft lapping of rainwater against the ledges, in tune with the pulse of the city below. She tried to read the figure, to discern motive, identity, pattern, anything. But they were a shadow, thought made flesh. a ghost who left coins instead of words. Then, without warning, the figure turned, slowly, deliberately. One coin slipped from their fingers, glinting in the dim light, and fell over the edge, tumbling through the night air like a tiny silver star before disappearing into the darkness below. Myra's eyes followed it, noting its trajectory, the exact angle, the rhythm of its release. She understood instinctively it was a message. Not of death, not yet, but of movement, of control, of design. Someone was orchestrating the night like a game, and she was both participant and observer. She stepped closer to the edge, breath shallow, scanning rooftops for possible escape routes. The figure had already begun to retreat, moving along a narrow ledge, their silhouette bending and flowing with unnatural grace. Mira felt the pull of fascination, of dread, as she realized that to follow would mean stepping into the void of the city's upper skeleton, a labyrinth of beams and rooftops, all wet with rain and mist. Yet she could not turn away. She could not ignore the challenge. The coins, the victims, the whispered messages, they demanded pursuit. Her flashlight caught a glint, a coin left behind on the rooftop ledge, exactly where the figure had paused. Mira picked it up carefully, noting the markings etched into its surface. The same symbol from the docks, the same circle with the diagonal slash. It was a breadcrumb. And a warning. Someone wanted her to follow, but they also wanted her to know the consequences of misstep. The wind picked up, tugging at her coat, carrying distant sounds, a dog barking, water dripping, metal groaning under weight. She felt the presence of the figure in the air, in the shadows, in the rhythm of the city itself. Every instinct told her to wait, to consider, to calculate. But the drive to uncover the truth outweighed caution. Step by careful step, she moved toward the edge where the figure had vanished, her movements precise, her mind attuned to every sound, every reflection, every whisper carried by the night. And then she saw it. A pattern of lights across adjacent rooftops, faint glimmers reflecting the wet surfaces, forming a trail. The figure had left this path intentionally, as if daring her to follow. Mira felt the pulse of excitement and fear intertwining, the thrill of pursuit tempered by the knowledge that the predator she chased was skilled, deliberate, and intimately familiar with every corner of the city. The trail led her higher, deeper into the skeletal framework of the district, across beams and ledges slick with rain. Each step required focus, balance, and courage. Above, the moon broke through clouds briefly, illuminating the city like a watchful eye. Mira paused, scanning the horizon, realizing that the figure was both nowhere and everywhere, a phantom within the urban landscape. The coins, the victims, the symbols, they were all pieces of a larger narrative, a story being written in real time, and she was now an integral part of it. The rooftop figure had left a final message, a single coin placed atop a vent, glinting under the moonlight. Mira approached, recognizing the design etched into its surface. It was not a threat. It was an invitation, an acknowledgement that the game was no longer just about observation. It was about pursuit, strategy, and understanding the invisible threads connecting the victims, the coins, and the orchestrator of the night. She stood there for a long moment, breathing in the cold, damp air, letting the city's rhythm synchronize with her own. She understood that the rooftop figure was not just a criminal to be caught. They were a puzzle to be solved, a shadow moving through the night with purpose and patience, and a test that only she could navigate. As the first hints of dawn touched the skyline, Mira realized that this encounter, while silent and fleeting, had shifted everything. The coins, the shadows, the whispers, they were no longer abstract threats. They were tangible challenges demanding resolution. The rooftop figure had moved on, leaving her alone with the city and the silver coin, and with the knowledge that the night's game had only just begun. Mira took one last glance across the rooftops, the coin in her hand reflecting the pale light of early morning. Somewhere beyond her sight, the figure waited, watching, orchestrating. And she knew, with a clarity born of experience and instinct, that the next move would not be accidental. It would be deliberate. She tucked the coin into her pocket, feeling its cold weight, and whispered to herself, "I'm coming, and I will follow every shadow you leave behind." The city had fallen into the quiet tension that only the late-night hours can hold. Streetlights flickered along rain-slicked avenues, reflecting against puddles like molten silver. Detective Mira Solis followed the faint pulse of anticipation through the streets, her coat damp from intermittent drizzle, her boots silent on the wet asphalt. Each step brought her closer to understanding the orchestrator who had haunted her nights, leaving behind coins, symbols, and whispers as breadcrumbs across the city. The silver coins were more than objects. They were markers of a meticulous mind, a deliberate guide through an unseen pattern stitched into the urban landscape. Mira held one in her palm, cold and heavy, its weight grounding her as she traced the map in her mind. She imagined the sequence of coins, the rhythm of their placement, and the subtle intentions embedded in each. Each silver disc was a note in a composition that she had yet to fully understand, a melody she needed to follow to uncover the truth. Her destination tonight was the industrial district, a place of abandoned warehouses and silent shipping yards, where shadows moved freely and secrets rested in corners too dark for ordinary eyes. Mira approached with caution, flashlight cutting through the darkness, revealing the slick surfaces of concrete and steel. Every echo, every distant drip of water, felt amplified, a symphony of warning in the night. She could sense the city holding its breath, as if aware of the drama unfolding within its veins. A soft glimmer caught her eye, a coin precisely placed atop a metal grate. The light reflected off its surface, forming a fleeting line toward the shadowed alley beyond. Mira crouched, examining the coin carefully. Its markings were familiar, the diagonal slash within a circle, a signature she had come to recognize. But now, an additional detail emerged. A micro-etching along the edge, tiny numbers and letters almost invisible to the naked eye. They hinted at time, location, perhaps the next step in the orchestrator's deliberate game. She pocketed the coin and continued down the alley, her senses alert. The city seemed alive around her. The soft hiss of steam from vents, the distant hum of machinery, the occasional scuff of a stray animal. Shadows shifted subtly, suggesting movement where none should exist. Mira knew she was being observed. The orchestrator had been careful, leaving only traces for her to follow, never exposing themselves directly, yet always present in the rhythm of the night. Another coin appeared, reflecting the dim light from a distant lamp. Myra's pulse quickened. She examined it and found additional markings, a continuation of the coded sequence. Each placement revealed not only precision but intention, guiding her movement through the industrial maze. She realized that this trail was not just physical but psychological, designed to draw her deeper into understanding the orchestrator's mind, to test her perception and patience. The further she followed, the more intricate the pattern became. Coins appeared in locations that formed geometric alignments across streets, rooftops, and alleyways. Mira traced these connections mentally, realizing that the orchestrator's design was akin to a map of the city's secret heartbeat, a pulse she could sense but had never observed before. Every turn, every step, was a deliberate part of the sequence, each coin a note in a composition meant only for her understanding. Suddenly, a movement in the shadows. Myra's hand went to her holster instinctively. A figure emerged, fleeting and indistinct, retreating toward a nearby rooftop. The silver glint of a coin in their hand caught her eye before they vanished from view. Her mind raced. Was this a test, a distraction, or an invitation to follow? The city seemed to hold its breath as she calculated her next move, aware that the orchestrator was not just leaving clues but guiding her steps, teaching her the rhythm of the game. Mira adjusted her approach, moving along fire escapes and narrow ledges, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of the cityscape around her. Each coin became a waypoint, a signal that she was on the correct path. She felt the orchestrator's presence like a current in the air, subtle yet undeniable, leading her closer to understanding. The rhythm of their placement spoke in a language beyond words, a silent communication she had learned to interpret with growing intuition. Hours passed as she followed the trail, each coin revealing new layers of complexity. The sequence led her to the edge of the industrial district, where warehouses gave way to the riverfront. Here the orchestrator's pattern converged, a series of coins forming an intricate spiral, visible only from an elevated perspective. Mira realized that the trail was designed not merely to guide her physically but to shape her perception, to align her understanding with the orchestrator's meticulous planning. At the center of the spiral, a final coin glimmered under the dim light of a lone street lamp. Mira approached cautiously, recognizing the familiar symbol and the additional micro-etchings indicating coordinates and timing. She placed her hand over it, feeling the cold metal, and understood. This was the culmination of the trail, the nexus where observation met understanding. She could sense the orchestrator nearby, watching, waiting, orchestrating the next movement in this silent, elaborate game. Her phone buzzed, a message, brief and cryptic. "You follow well. Now you see the design. The next choice is yours." Myra's pulse thrummed in response. The orchestrator had revealed enough to challenge her understanding, yet left the ultimate resolution uncertain, a deliberate balance of revelation and suspense. Mira exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of anticipation and responsibility. The silver trail was more than a sequence of coins. It was a conduit, a message, and a challenge. She had followed the rhythm, interpreted the symbols, and reached the orchestrator's carefully constructed nexus. Yet the game was far from over. Somewhere in the shadows beyond her sight, the orchestrator remained, ready to lead her further into the night, into the patterns, and into the heart of the mystery. With the final coin in her hand, Mira whispered to herself, a soft vow in the quiet night. "I will follow the trail through shadows and silver, until the game reveals its final truth." And with that resolve, she prepared to step forward, deeper into the orchestrator's carefully woven web, knowing that every movement, every shadow, and every coin carried meaning beyond the surface, waiting for her to decipher the ultimate secret.
The city awoke slowly, its streets damp with the memory of rain, mist curling over asphalt like quiet whispers. Detective Mira Solis traced her path from the riverfront, coins clutched in her hand, her mind threading together the sequence of events that had unfolded over the past nights. Each step was measured, deliberate, a rhythm echoing the pattern the orchestrator had laid before her. Yet, beneath the silver trail, there was something else, a resonance, a memory stirring from shadows she thought long buried. The office had become a sanctuary and a labyrinth simultaneously, filled with photographs, maps, and symbols, all illuminated by the soft glow of a desk lamp. Mira lingered over old case files, lines connecting past incidents that had initially seemed disconnected. The coins, the shadows, the rooftop figure, they all pointed back, subtly, toward forgotten crimes and overlooked victims. History, it seemed, was repeating itself in a pattern orchestrated with meticulous precision. Myra's fingers hovered over an old photograph, yellowed at the edges, showing a street corner where a victim had been found 5 years ago. She recalled the sensation of arriving there then, the city silent except for her own breath, the sense that someone was watching. And now, the pattern of coins echoed the exact path taken by the orchestrator in those long-past events. It was as if the city itself remembered, holding the echoes of crimes in its architecture, its alleys, its abandoned corners. She felt a chill run down her spine. The orchestrator was not only playing in the present, but had been shaping a long narrative, threads woven carefully across years, guiding events with unseen hands. Each coin she held was a fragment of that narrative, a bridge between what had happened and what was about to unfold. The past was alive, and it was speaking in a language she was only beginning to understand. Mira left the office, coins tucked carefully in her pocket, and walked to the oldest section of the city. Cobblestone streets glistened under a veil of fog, and the sound of distant traffic seemed to fade, replaced by the echo of footsteps long gone. Every corner, every archway, seemed to whisper stories unfinished, unresolved, waiting for attention. She traced the locations where past victims had been found, aligning them with the recent coins. Patterns emerged, subtle yet undeniable, and she realized that the orchestrator was testing not only her intellect but her memory, her ability to connect the present with the echoes of the past. At a forgotten square, a single coin lay on a cracked fountain, catching the dim light of a nearby lamp. Mira crouched, recognizing the familiar symbol and noticing slight variations, a date etched along the edge, corresponding to an old crime. The orchestrator's message was clear: understand the past, or the present will remain obscured. The weight of the coin in her hand was heavier now, burdened with history, memory, and expectation. She continued through the quiet streets, following the sequence that connected past incidents to present clues. Each step felt like walking through time, each shadow a reminder that the city's history was alive, its memory embodied in the alleys and abandoned buildings. Mira felt the orchestrator's presence more acutely now, guiding her not just spatially but temporally, teaching her to read the subtle cadences of cause and effect. In a narrow alleyway, Mira paused. The wind carried a soft whisper, or perhaps it was imagination, of footsteps that had long since vanished. She examined the walls, the doors, the graffiti, looking for hidden markers, symbols, anything that could connect the coins to the past. And then she noticed it, a faint carving behind a rusted door hinge, almost invisible unless the light hit it at the correct angle. A circle with a diagonal slash, the same symbol etched into every coin. Yet beneath it, another mark, a letter, a number, a reference to a case closed years ago. Mira's heart quickened. The orchestrator had anticipated her deduction, leaving a breadcrumb tied directly to her own memories, forcing her to confront history as she pursued the present. The city was no longer a map of streets, but a living chronicle, each alley and rooftop resonating with echoes of choices, mistakes, and secrets. She followed the subtle guidance, moving toward an abandoned train station at the edge of the district. The station smelled of rust and wet wood, its platform silent except for the soft drip of water from the canopy above. A single coin rested on a bench, glinting faintly. Mira approached, noting the micro-etchings, coordinates linking the present trail to a crime from her earliest years on the force, a victim whose case had been forgotten or buried in paperwork. The orchestrator was teaching her that the past was never truly gone. It was a living thread connecting every act, every decision, every shadow. Mira stood in the station, feeling the weight of time and memory. Each coin, each symbol, each echo of the past was a step closer to understanding the mind she pursued. She understood, finally, that to solve the game, she must integrate history with the present, memory with observation, intuition with logic. The orchestrator was not merely leaving clues, but guiding her through a meditation on cause, effect, and consequence. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying a faint metallic scent, the hint of movement nearby. Mira's pulse synchronized with the rhythm of the city, attuned to the presence she had been tracking. The rooftop figure, the coins, the patterns, all were part of a dance that transcended time. And she realized that the echoes of the past were not simply memories, but active elements in the orchestrator's game. She whispered to herself, soft but resolute, "I will listen to the past, follow its echoes, and let them guide me to the truth." With that thought, Mira stepped forward, deeper into the station, ready to trace the final threads connecting history, symbols, and the orchestrator's shadowy design. The city held its breath, the past and present intertwining, as the next chapter of the pursuit began. The night settles like a velvet cloak over the city, thick and still, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional clatter of a shuttered window. Detective Mira Solis moves quietly along the deserted streets, her senses heightened, attuned to every subtle sound, every shifting shadow. The silver trail of coins has led her far, but tonight feels different. The city seems alive in a way that presses closer, watching her back as she moves. She recalls the rooftop figure, fleeting and ghost-like, always observing, always just beyond reach. The orchestrator's presence has become a tangible rhythm in her steps, a cadence she senses but cannot touch. Mira knows instinctively that the game has shifted. She is no longer merely following clues. She is being watched, studied, measured by an intelligence that thrives in concealment. A soft reflection catches her eye, a street lamp glimmers on a rain-slicked pavement, and for a fleeting moment, she sees a shadow moving along the building opposite. Mira halts, her pulse steadying into a deliberate calm. She recognizes the deliberate stillness of someone trained, someone patient, someone who understands that the observer is most powerful when unseen. The city has become a stage for silent choreography, a performance designed around her awareness. She crouches behind a low wall, surveying the alleyway ahead. The faint metallic glint of another coin catches her eye. Carefully, she approaches, feeling the tension coil in her muscles like a spring ready to release. The coin is placed atop a crate, its symbol, a circle with a diagonal slash, familiar yet now resonating with added weight. Micro-etchings line its edge, almost imperceptible, hinting at coordinates and times. Mira studies them closely, tracing her finger along the markings, mapping a sequence that stretches beyond the immediate environment. Each movement of the hidden observer is deliberate, precise, and yet invisible. Mira begins to see the city as a network of vantage points, angles where eyes could be trained without revealing themselves. She imagines rooftops, fire escapes, and alley corners, invisible perches from which a vigilant presence measures her actions. The observer's intelligence lies in the subtlety of observation, in anticipation, in the patience to wait until the perfect moment. Her flashlight cuts a narrow path through the dark, illuminating debris, puddles, and the occasional stray animal. She senses the orchestrator in the periphery of her vision, a silent presence weaving through the night, guiding the pattern, manipulating perception. Mira recognizes that understanding the coins alone is insufficient. To anticipate the next move, she must account for this unseen intelligence, this hidden mind shaping the flow of her journey. As she rounds a corner, the alley opens into a small courtyard, abandoned except for a rusted fountain and scattered crates. Another coin rests near the fountain, its symbol perfectly etched. Mira kneels, examining it. She notices subtle differences from previous coins, a slight tilt in the diagonal slash, a minuscule addition to the micro-etchings, suggesting the orchestrator is testing her observation, rewarding those who notice nuance and punishing those who overlook detail. Her phone vibrates softly, a single message from an unknown number. "You notice well, detective. But observation alone will not reveal the full truth. Watch, wait, and listen carefully." Mira tucks the phone away, understanding the implicit challenge. The hidden observer is not just leaving clues. They are orchestrating a scenario that measures her perception, her patience, her capacity for synthesis. The city's shadows become a living network of information, every corner a node, every alley a channel, every glint of light a potential signal. Hours pass as Mira traces the sequence, each coin revealing both a location and a psychological layer. She senses the hidden observer adapting, responding to her choices, shifting the environment subtly to gauge her attention and resolve. The pursuit becomes a dialogue without words, a game played in silence, in darkness, in the tension between visibility and concealment. Finally, she reaches the end of the courtyard. The last coin glimmers faintly under the flickering streetlight. Mira kneels, carefully studying the markings. She traces a finger along the micro-etchings, feeling the weight of anticipation and understanding. The observer's signature is present not just in the coin but in the placement, in the choreography, in the orchestration of space and perception. She stands, sensing movement above, a shadow on a rooftop, vanishing into the night as if to remind her that she is never alone, never unobserved. The hidden observer has revealed just enough to guide her, and just enough to maintain mystery. The game continues, intricate and delicate, a dance of light, shadow, and perception. Mira whispers to herself, her voice blending with the night. "I see you in the spaces between. I feel your presence in the quiet, and I will follow the trail wherever it leads." And with that resolve, she steps forward, deeper into the city's maze, aware that every shadow, every coin, and every subtle movement carries meaning, awaiting her careful attention and insight. The hidden observer watches, patient and calculating, as the next chapter of the pursuit begins. The night drifts around you with the softness of falling ash, each particle of darkness settling gently over the city's forgotten corners. Detective Mira Solis walks slowly, as though the world has shifted into a dreamlike stillness, the kind that causes your breath to deepen and your thoughts to wander inward. She feels the weight of the hidden observer's message still lingering in her pocket, vibrating in her mind like a faint, distant echo. Every step she takes is cushioned by a quiet awareness, a sense that she is not merely tracing clues, but walking into the architecture of another mind entirely. The city stretches before her like a living labyrinth. Streets curl into one another, buildings rise and fall like uneven beats of a mechanical heart, and shadows glide along the ground with the patience of something ancient. Mira pauses beneath an iron street lamp, its light flickering gently, as if breathing in sync with her. She listens, not for footsteps or whispers, but for the subtle rhythm of thought, the slow, deliberate cadence of the orchestrator's intelligence. It feels almost like standing inside a giant clock. Every alley, every coin, every subtle shift in vantage point is a gear turning, guiding her along a trajectory she is only beginning to decipher. She closes her eyes, allowing the night air to settle over her face. The coolness soothes her, grounding her, helping her attune to the silent structure beneath everything. She focuses on her breathing, on the steady inhale and exhale that keeps her tethered to herself as she peers into the framework of another person's mind. A faint hum rises from a transformer box nearby. Mira opens her eyes slowly, following the sound. The hum vibrates at a frequency almost identical to her heartbeat. It is soft, rhythmic, and strangely comforting. She moves toward it, feeling as though she is being guided by the invisible pulse of the city, or perhaps by the person who understands it more intimately than she does. She reaches a narrow side street where the buildings lean inward, their rooftops nearly touching as though exchanging secrets. Mira runs her fingers along the brick walls, feeling their texture. Rough patches, smooth corners, chipped fragments. Every surface holds a story. Every shadow holds an intention. She senses that the orchestrator has walked these streets long before she arrived, memorizing each crack in the pavement, each metal pipe, each window ledge. A glimmer catches her eye. Another coin rests near a drain pipe, nestled between fallen leaves. Its surface is polished, glinting like a tiny moon trapped between shadows. Mira kneels beside it, breathing softly as she lifts it into her palm. The symbol etched on this one is familiar, but something is different. The diagonal slash curves slightly, as though shaped by a hand that wanted to communicate in subtler ways. She holds the coin close to her ear and listens to the faint vibrations of metal cooling in the night air. The coin feels warm, a sign that it was placed moments ago. Mira looks up swiftly. The rooftops loom overhead, silent but alive. She imagines the hidden observer perched somewhere above, watching her with patient, deliberate eyes. The orchestrator is not just planning. They are studying her reactions, measuring her intuition, observing the way her mind forms connections. Mira realizes that the true puzzle here is not the trail of coins, it is the psychology of the person leaving them. Understanding them requires silence. Understanding them requires stillness. Understanding them requires stepping into their rhythm, their breath, their clockwork. She stands slowly, closing her hand around the coin. Its warmth seeps through her skin, grounding her in the moment. She lets her mind loosen, drift, and expand, imagining gears turning inside a vast machine. Each clue is a cog. Each location is a pivot. Each moment is a tick or a tock. But the orchestrator, the hidden observer, is the mainspring, the force that sets everything into motion. Mira walks deeper into the narrow street, guided by instinct and the faint metallic scent that lingers in the air. She turns into an open courtyard lit only by a distant apartment window. The faint glow illuminates the dust swirling in slow spirals. She watches the particles carefully, noticing the faint disturbance in their movement, a subtle swirl that doesn't match the breeze. Someone was here, recently, close enough that the air has not yet returned to its natural rhythm. Mira inhales deeply and sits on the edge of an old stone planter. She closes her eyes again and listens, not to the city, but to her own mind. She lets the chaos settle. She lets her thoughts become still ponds where reflections can surface quietly. In the stillness, a pattern emerges. The coins have not been guiding her randomly. They are placed at locations where thought aligns with environment, places where the orchestrator likely stood, observing not just the physical world, but the concept of perception itself. Mira envisions them as someone who studies how people observe, react, interpret, misunderstand. Someone who sees cognition the same way an architect sees space. Someone who builds understanding the way a clockmaker builds mechanisms, delicately, precisely, with deep patience. A soft breeze flows through the courtyard, rustling leaves and brushing against her cheek, like a gentle whisper. Mira opens her eyes and stands, feeling a renewed clarity. The orchestrator is not simply hiding. They are waiting for her to step fully into the architecture of their mind. They want her to understand the foundation of their design, the logic beneath their silence. The next coin lies at the base of an old iron gate. She picks it up and sees the micro-etchings form a subtle spiral, a symbol she has not encountered before. It resembles the inner coil of a clock spring, a mechanism that stores potential, a memory wound tightly, waiting for release. She traces the etching with her thumb. Suddenly, she understands. The orchestrator is not just leading her forward. They are winding her, testing her patience, testing her perception, testing her ability to slow down enough to see the invisible. The city around her becomes an extension of this clockwork mind, each street an alley of thought, each corner a shifting gear, each rooftop an elevated vantage point from which new ideas drop into place. Mira keeps walking, now with gentler steps, as though syncing herself with the tempo of the night. Every breath she takes matches the rhythm of her surroundings. Every movement becomes deliberate. She feels the orchestrator's presence more clearly, not as an enemy, but as a consciousness running parallel to hers. A stillness settles over the world, delicate and absolute. Then she sees it, a figure, faint as a shadow, standing on a balcony across the courtyard. The hidden observer, watching, silent, balanced perfectly between revelation and retreat. Mira does not chase them. She stands still, meeting the gaze she cannot fully see. The moment stretches, soft and deep, like holding your breath beneath calm water. The observer tilts their head slightly, acknowledging her progress, acknowledging her willingness to step into the complexity they have constructed. And then, the shadow slips backward, vanishing into the deeper darkness behind the balcony doors. Mira exhales slowly, the sound blending with the night's quiet hum. She knows now that the orchestrator's mind is not chaotic or malicious. It is intricate, thoughtful, wound tightly, like a clock that never ticks aloud. And a willingness to listen to the spaces between actions. She turns away from the balcony and walks back into the street, feeling the path unfolding in front of her with newfound clarity. There is a larger pattern hidden beneath these clues, something she can sense, but cannot yet articulate. Something that waits quietly, like a clock waiting for the hour to strike. And she knows, with calm certainty, that the next chapter will bring her closer to the center of the mechanism, closer to the truth the orchestrator has kept wound in silence. The city exhales in the quiet hours before dawn, the streets washed in silver-blue light that pools gently along the pavement. Detective Mira Solis walks slowly, each step measured, her senses stretched to capture the faintest shift in the night. The orchestrator's coins have led her through alleys, courtyards, and abandoned buildings, each symbol a soft echo of the mind she pursues. But now a new awareness settles over her. The end of the sequence is near, the final gear turning in a mechanism that has been silent for years, yet deliberate in every motion. The air carries a chill, subtle but insistent, brushing against her skin like a whispered caution. Mira notices the alignment of shadows, how the light from distant street lamps strikes the corners of buildings in ways that feel intentional, almost staged. The orchestrator has been here before, has measured these spaces, has anticipated each observer, each breath, each heartbeat. She pauses, closing her eyes for a long moment, letting the rhythm of the city enter her mind. The faint hum of electricity, the distant dripping of water, the whisper of wind along the rooftops. Each sound is a note in a silent symphony, a cadence that the orchestrator has composed, and she is finally beginning to understand the melody. Another coin rests in the hollow of a stone balustrade, glinting faintly under the pale light. Mira crouches, her fingers brushing over the etched symbol, a circle interlaced with tiny diagonal lines, subtle variations from those she has seen before. She lifts it to her palm, turning it gently as though it might reveal a hidden mechanism. The warmth of the metal feels alive, pulsing with a rhythm she senses but cannot fully hear. She realizes the orchestrator is teaching her patience, teaching her to listen not only with eyes but with the quiet attention of the mind. From somewhere above, a faint movement catches her attention. She lifts her gaze slowly, tracing the rooftops and fire escapes. A shadow shifts across a balcony, then disappears, leaving only the memory of presence. The orchestrator is watching, always, but not to threaten, to guide, to measure, to illuminate the mind that follows. Mira feels a strange serenity, a calm born of understanding that she is not alone in this intricate dance. Every coin, every symbol, every faint breath of movement is part of a larger pattern, and she has begun to perceive the invisible framework that underpins it. She continues along the quiet streets, guided by intuition as much as by the trail of coins. Each location brings a new revelation, a subtle mark on a lamppost, a faint engraving on a railing, a placement that reveals not just direction but intention. Mira senses the orchestration of thought behind each clue. The orchestrator does not merely hide information. They construct environments, manipulate perception, and layer insight over action like a clockmaker assembling a mechanism whose inner workings are visible only to those who move with deliberate awareness. In the courtyard of an abandoned theater, Mira pauses. The stage is shadowed, draped in tattered curtains that sway slightly in the soft wind. Dust motes float in the pale light, spinning lazily as though caught in invisible currents. She notices another coin, resting atop the stone fountain in the center. Its design is more complex now, a spiral woven into the circle, a miniature gear etched along the edge. She kneels, tracing the intricate details with a fingertip. The orchestrator is revealing the structure of their mind, a network of cause, consequence, and observation, each element interlocking like the cogs of an immense clockwork apparatus. Her thoughts drift for a moment, drifting like the dust around her. The past, present, and the orchestrator's silent influence converge in her mind. Every detail she has observed aligns with memory, intuition, and reason, forming a comprehensive understanding of the pattern. She realizes that the journey has been not only a pursuit of another mind but also an inward exploration, a meditation on attention, patience, and perception. Each coin, each shadow, each subtle shift has been a lesson in clarity and awareness. A soft metallic clink echoes in the distance. Mira rises and follows the sound, moving through narrow corridors between the buildings. The city seems to contract around her, space bending gently, guiding her toward the final location. She senses the rhythm of movement, her own footsteps in harmony with the pulse of the environment. The orchestrator's influence is everywhere yet nowhere, like a pervasive current that can be felt but not held. The final gear, she understands, is waiting for her, the last connection in a sequence that has spanned memory, time, and thought. She reaches an elevated walkway overlooking a small plaza. A single coin rests on the edge, catching the faint glow of a distant lamp. Its symbol is familiar yet complex, the culmination of all previous markings, a design that conveys purpose, precision, and intention. Mira kneels to examine it. Tiny engravings spiral into the center, forming a network of paths and lines that mirror the pathways she has traced throughout the city. It is both a puzzle and a revelation. The orchestrator has left not just clues, but a map of thought, a representation of the clockwork of their mind. Mira lifts the coin, turning it slowly, and notices a soft vibration through the metal. It feels alive, attuned to her movements. She understands intuitively that the orchestrator has constructed the sequence to align perception with comprehension. Each step she has taken has been measured to prepare her for this moment. The final coin is not simply a marker. It is an invitation to step into the mechanism itself, to grasp the structure behind the silence, to witness the integration of insight, observation, and patience. The night deepens. Mira stands on the walkway, feeling the wind brush her face. The city holds its breath, still and watchful. Somewhere, above, the orchestrator remains unseen, yet present. The sequence is complete. The lesson is revealed. She realizes that the true pursuit has never been merely of the hidden observer, but of understanding the patterns, the cadence, the subtle mechanics of mind and environment, and ultimately, the connection between attention and insight. A distant clock chimes, soft and deliberate, each note resonating through the plaza and echoing along the rooftops. Mira hears it not just as sound, but as affirmation, as confirmation of alignment between her mind and the orchestrator's design. She breathes deeply, letting the cadence fill her. Every past step, every observation, every pause and reflection has led to this point. The city itself feels like a clock, intricate, precise, patient, and now, in quiet communion with her awareness. Mira looks down at the coin in her hand. Its weight is familiar, grounding, yet extraordinary. She sees not only the symbol, but the reflection of the city, of the sequence she has traced, of the hidden. She feels a serenity she has not known before, the calm of understanding, the clarity of insight, and the quiet joy of arriving at the culmination of a careful, deliberate journey. The orchestrator does not reveal themselves. Their presence lingers in shadow and memory, in alignment and rhythm, teaching that understanding does not always require confrontation. Mira knows she has reached the final gear, the point at which insight and awareness converge, where the mechanism of mind, action, and observation is fully comprehended. She stands on the elevated walkway, the city breathing around her, and feels the profound silence of completion. Yet even in the stillness, she senses the continuation. The gears of thought, observation, and intuition will continue to turn, guiding her in the quiet spaces, in the unseen corners, in the rhythm of awareness that extends beyond the pursuit. The orchestrator's lesson has been absorbed, a meditation on patience, attention, and perception. And as Mira walks down into the plaza, feeling the weight of coins, shadows, and subtle echoes, she knows that the city, and the minds within it, will continue their delicate dance. The first light of dawn brushes the rooftops with pale gold, softening the shadows, illuminating the pathways she has traced. Mira breathes in deeply, letting the cool air fill her lungs. She has followed the trail, understood the pattern, and embraced the clockwork of the orchestrator's mind. And as she steps into the streets now brightening with day, she senses the final, quiet truth of the pursuit. Understanding is the ultimate gear, and it turns silently, unseen, guiding every movement toward insight. The city continues to breathe, alive with memory, rhythm, and quiet intelligence, awaiting the next observer who will walk gently through its intricate dance.